She was the grande dame of British comedy, stealing scenes for decades with her hilarious hijinks and iconic eye rolls. Generations of fans adored Joan Sims' on-screen exploits alongside Sid James and Kenneth Williams in the hit Carry On series. But off-camera, the bubbly actress led a solitary existence, her lingering regret over never marrying or having children only disclosed after her death at 71. Join Facts First UK as we unravel the mystery of Sims' splendid isolation. Early romance. In her late 20s, Sims embarked on a 3-year live-in relationship with fellow actor Tony Baird. Though she was initially besotted with this lovable reprobate, as she later described him, the romance eventually crumbled under the weight of parental disapproval and shifting career fortunes. According to a recent biography, Sims's parents were unaware she was cohabiting with Baird whenever they came to visit her in the London flat she shared with him. She would apparently ask Baird to remove all traces of his belongings and presence before her parents arrived. This charade became challenging to maintain long-term, though. During one visit, Sims finally admitted to her mother that Baird was more than a roommate. He was a romantic partner she considered an integral part of her life. The revelation shocked her conservative parents. Her father responded by sending Sims a stern letter condemning the relationship and the fact that she was living out of wedlock with a man. Though Sims was nearly 30 years old, she had always been considered a dutiful daughter. She refrained from contacting her parents for half a year, but the relationship also began experiencing friction as she found more and more success as a comedic actress, while Baird floundered professionally. In her memoir, Sims reflected that she and Baird may have made an excellent duo if the model of house husband and breadwinner wife had been more mainstream in that era. But the reality was Sims's skyrocketing career and income highlighted Baird's lack thereof. Her frequent absences while touring in plays or filming movies also took a toll. The last straw came when Sims returned from a long work trip to discover Baird had not adequately maintained their home. Though the breakup left them both devastated initially, in Sims's view it was necessary for her self-preservation. Sadly, this experience made Sims guarded about committing to another serious relationship without her parents' blessing. Brief hope for marriage and kids. She eventually entered into a new live-in relationship with John Walters, whom she'd known for years. He had been the assistant stage manager on the musical revue Sims starred in called High Spirits. Sims was in her mid-30s when she and Walters began cohabitating, making this the last serious romance of her love by all accounts. The emotional trauma from the disillusion of her previous relationship seemingly made committing again a formidable hurdle to clear. And unlike with Baird, there is little evidence Sims was ever besotted with her new partner. However, biographical excerpts do indicate she experienced her only phase of broodiness during this 2-year relationship. She and Walters apparently had serious discussions about potentially getting married and having children. But Sims's memoir suggests part of her knew such dreams were untenable, given Walters' moody temperament. In reflecting back on this time, Sims resisted placing blame only on Walters. She instead highlighted the intrinsic incompatibility between the creative callings and unconventional lifestyles of two actors. The demands on time, energy, and emotions from immersing oneself in an endless string of films, theatrical tours, and temporary lodgings were seen as the prime obstacles. Neither Sims nor Walters wanted to give up performing to focus on raising a family, and tackling both simultaneously struck them as stressful and a likely unsustainable balancing act. When this second cohabiting affair eventually ran its course, so too did Sims's openness to serious relationships. She instead cultivated a reputation as the consummate independent woman and purveyor of mirth, whose enduring bedfellows were the camera and stage. Colleagues dubbed her wholehearted commitment to her vocation an inspiration, but privately, Sims may have harbored a degree of loneliness and longing for an elusive domestic existence. Dedicating her life to acting. Though still only in her 30s, she decided to forego serious relationships in favor of pouring all her energy into acting. Whether on the glittering West End stages or in front of film cameras, Sims earned glowing reviews for her comedic talents starting in the 50s. Joining the legendary Carry On franchise catapulted her to greater fame, playing cheeky supporting parts. The demands of this phenomenal run, spanning 24 low-budget British comedies, made settling down logistically implausible. The filming schedules were grueling, with the actors often going from project to project. Sims joked in her memoir that the dressing rooms doubled as temporary living quarters at times. As a top-billed performer, her on-set hours were the longest. She also toured frequently between carry-on movies and TV guest spots. Additionally, the rowdy antics and bawdy banter of company members fostered camaraderie but allowed little privacy. Stars like Barbara Windsor and Kenneth Williams became surrogate family. The ensemble's antics kept spirits high amid long workdays, but socializing was virtually mandatory. One biography suggests romance struggled to blossom under such conditions. And Sims indicated feeling drained physically and emotionally whenever production wrapped. She craved quiet recuperation time. The thought of expending effort on courtship seemed exhausting. Sims accepted fully immersing herself in acting and left minimal opportunity for anything more than fleeting dalliances or superficial flings. She achieved domestic stability via property investments rather than relationships. Depression and drinking. In the early 80s, Sims suffered a series of grievous losses that triggered a nervous breakdown when she was in her early 50s. Within the span of 2 years, she lost her beloved agent Peter Eade, closest friend Hattie Jacques, and her mother. Hattie, in particular, had been by Sims's side since the beginnings of her career. Their friendship was likened to family. Beset by grief, Sims reportedly struggled to cope. She spent months in psychiatric care in 1982 for severe depression. Sadly, this seems to have marked the genesis of what became serious alcohol issues in subsequent years. A recent biography indicates Sims started drinking excessively around this traumatic period, worsening the isolation she already felt as an unmarried woman living alone. Many scenes in Sims's own memoirs point to nights spent with a bottle as her sole companion. She remarked on the Queen of Puddings phenomenon, where one dessert wine would flow into more until stumbling off to sleep. Professional success continued, but personally, Sims portrayed herself as despairing over lost loved ones during this midlife period. The depression apparently stubbornly lingered even after Sims gave up drinking later on. But she shunned suggestions by doctors that she enter rehab or therapy. Final years. In the last decade of her life, longtime confidant Nora Holland constituted one of the few people privy to Sims's innermost thoughts and regrets. The recent authorized biography of Sims draws on Holland's recollections of conversations with Sims towards the end. Sims apparently confessed moments of profound sadness about her perennial single status to this friend in private. Holland disclosed Sims harbored a sense of failure for not having found a lifetime partner and helpmate. In the hospital, during her final weeks, Holland also reminded a barely conscious Sims of treasured memories like working with their beloved carry-on co-stars. In the end, the biography indicates it was Sims herself who supplied the most insightful take on why she stayed single and childless despite her warmth. Quote, "I was always useless at flirting," she mused, identifying a fatal flaw that hindered emotional availability. Now it's time to hear from you. Which part of this story was most surprising to hear about? Let us know in the comments section below.